Welcome to the Realizations Podcast. I'm Andrea Gordon, your host, and I'm excited to explore the world of real estate with you. In a world where perceptions often overshadow reality, Realizations seeks to redefine what it means to be a realtor. Join me as we peel back the layers of the industry, uncovering inspiring stories and celebrating the good in real estate. Whether you're a homeowner, a fellow realtor, or simply curious, this podcast is for you. Welcome to Realizations, where perceptions meet reality. Let's dive right in. Welcome everyone to Realizations. I'm your host, Andrea Gordon, and today I am super duper excited to have Patrick Carlisle with us. Patrick is basically our statistic guru at Compass for Northern California, and actually he does the monthly report for the entire United States. So I'm super excited about him. Thank you, Patrick, for being here. I really appreciate you.
Thank you so much for the invitation, Andrea.
Of course. For our viewers, can you explain exactly what you do and why you do it?
All right, so my position is Chief Market Analyst at Compass. I've been in the business for 35 plus years. Just in the last 10 years, I've been concentrating specifically on market analytics. So the real estate industry is very poorly served in the realm of market analytics because so many brokerages, quite honestly, consider market reports to be a marketing function as opposed to an analysis function. So for me, the only purpose of real estate analytics is to try and give real estate agents and their clients straightforward data with context as to what that data means so that they can make informed decisions. Because ultimately what it comes down to is real estate agents, of course, need that sort of data to be able to converse intelligently with their clients about what is going on in the market and even in the greater economy. But ultimately, all the decisions are made by the clients, and they have to have information in a form that they can understand so that they can make their best decisions as to what they want to do in real estate, whether they want to buy or sell, whether they want to wait or whatever. Because ultimately, a lot of decision making, we look at information based upon what is going on now, and we look at the trends that have developed over the years. And I typically like to look at trends that go back anywhere from 4 or 5 years all the way back to 1980. So people really have a context as to how the ebb and flows of real estate work, how seasonality works within the year, but how, for example, how appreciation works over the greater period of time. Because again, buying a home is typically it's not like buying stocks. One doesn't buy a stock today and then, oh, great, I'll sell it tomorrow and make a quick profit. It's a long-term investment. And of course, it's tied into a lot of factors besides just the strict financial investment. It's home, it's security, it's a place for a family. And in many ways, depending on the person, that is more important than the financial. But of course, it is also typically the biggest financial transaction for many of our clients' lives. But ultimately, decision-making means that each person has to look at the data and try and make a decision as to what the future holds and how that ties in with what their priorities in life are. Mm-hmm. One, I mentioned at the beginning that most brokerages treat market analytics as a marketing function. And quite honestly, marketing function is trying to convince people to do something. As an agent, you use marketing to try and convince people out there in the market that this is the home, it's a good value, it's a beautiful home, here are the reasons why you should move forward on it. Make sure that it's as exposed as possible to every potential buyer and seller. When brokerages just do marketing pieces, well, they're basically just trying to convince people to buy or sell.
Right.
That is not my job.
Mhm.
My job isn't to try and convince anybody to do anything at any given time. What I try to do is, to the best of my ability, look at the data and try and figure out what it means, what the trends show, and then put the decision making as to whether they want to buy or sell and where they want to do and that sort of thing into the client's hands, in consultation with their agent, because quite honestly, I I try and drill down as much as possible. And I also try to pull back possible to give a real long-term context. But ultimately, of course, nobody knows the exact market
Right.
like an agent and I was an agent for 12 years, and I was a sales manager, and I did risk management. I've pretty much worn every single hat that's possible in real estate over the years.
We'll be
And
talking about
yeah,
that.
but a real estate agent is in the market every day of the week and experiencing what's going on with home selling and what they're seeing in buyers and what the priorities are and what sort of local economic issues may be impacting their market. I typically can't drill down to that sort of thing. So I try to present the greater data in conjunction with the expertise that a really good real estate agent brings to the consultation with their client as the client tries to make those decisions.
That is an absolutely brilliant answer. And I think that most people learn the hard way in real estate. You start out feeling really at sea, and then you figure out to be salesy. And one of the things I've learned in my 27 years as a realtor is that basically people are paying you to tell them the truth. They need real information. If you do not provide that, if you sugarcoat things for people, you are going to create economic havoc for them. If you do not tell them the just base truth of something, they can't make an informed decision, and they will blame you if it doesn't go right, if you have been sugarcoating anything.
Exactly. We know that in real estate, there is an enormous range of both competence and integrity among real estate agents. It goes from people who know very little and couldn't care less about their clients' interests. They're just looking for their next commission dollar. And then we go to the very best agents who their only concern is their clients' interests. And they know that is what turns into long-term success. And of course, in California, we are fiduciary agents of our clients, which is the absolute highest degree in the legal world and the business world as far as the required commitment to clients' interests. Fiduciary duty literally means that the agent is legally obligated to put their clients' interests above their own in every single situation. That's a very high standard, and it's a very high standard to live up to. And I actually try to live up to that in what I do, i.e., not to try to convince somebody to do something, but to try and tell them the truth so that they can make their own decision, whether that decision is to buy or sell or not, or whether to rent their home or not, and so forth and so on. And we know that real estate is an enormously complicated realm. The range of requirements and actions and things to think about in real estate, there's legal issues, there's money issues, there's the personal issues, there's neighborhood issues, there's the issues of how long a person plans to stay in their home and what they want to do with their home, and so forth and so on. And that's an enormous package of things to think about. And very few industries have such a wide range of considerations that a buyer or seller is faced with. And of course, again, the best agents do their best to guide their clients through those decisions without trying to pressure them to do anything in particular that might not be to their absolute best possible interest, highest interest.
right? Yesterday, I went on a listing appointment and it was in Alameda. And this elderly gentleman, probably about 85 years old, had literally lost his wife 2 weeks ago. And his son was there, basically pressuring him to go into assisted care and to sell the house. And I probably turned the listing appointment on its ear and probably won't get hired by saying to the guy, "What do you really want to do?"
Yeah.
I said, statistically, and I'm sure you can bear this out, people live in their house for 2 years after something like this occurs before they actually sell. So 2 weeks is a very short time to be going through your grieving process and making these kinds of big life decisions. Maybe you should give yourself a little bit of time here. He was very physically fit. I don't know how he was mentally, honestly. He seemed fine, but you never know. But he clearly could navigate through the house himself, and he clearly wasn't ready to make any sort of massive decision like this. And I was really upset because the son seemed to be pressuring him into assisted care so that he could sell this house that has suddenly become worth $3 million.
Yeah. Home for most of us is a refuge from the world. I
Yeah.
mean, what's going on in the world at any time, but especially now, it's really a place of safety, and its importance to each and all, to the vast majority of us, really can't be understated as to our quality of life.
Yeah.
And as an agent, I've been in the same situation. I remember because I used to sell apartment buildings as well.
Mhm.
And I was my business partner and I were in a meeting with a family and the owner, who again was an elderly man. And he was clearly suffering from dementia, which of course is a horrible thing
Yeah.
to undergo. And the family literally, and because of the way investment properties work, there are very specific requirements if you're going to sell and buy and
Right.
avoid,
1031 exchanges,
the
et cetera.
1031 exchange. It's a very complicated process. And the father obviously didn't know what he was able to make decisions. So of course, there should have been a legal process that had already been gone through. So the family was empowered to make the decisions for the father as appropriate. But the family literally wanted my partner and I to break the law
Yeah.
and try and we would love to help you. This is what we do for a living, and we'd love to help you through this process, but this is something we cannot do.
Yeah.
I'm sure they found somebody who was more than happy.
And that's the thing. It's like I left the listing appointment feeling really sorry for that guy and knowing I probably won't get the listing because I wasn't saying what the son wanted me to say. But it was just obvious to me that that guy needed time. He couldn't make a decision like that within 2 weeks of his wife's death. That's crazy. We are always handling all these big emotional things. Realtors are always coming into people's lives when they've had a kid, lost someone, lost a job, gotten married, found out that they came into a pile of money, found out that they don't have the money they thought they had. There's a lot of emotion tied up around money and how it works. And then once again, having the information that you provide to us is absolutely, utterly crucial. I have a question for you. And I wanted to ask you some other questions about your past and how you got into doing what you're doing. But in our Bay Area right now, we're having the crisis around insurance. Is there any way for you to pull concrete stats around the areas that are in fire maps that are above a 5? Because anything above a 5 requires California Fair Plan or other crisis insurance. Would there be a way for you to pull those kinds of statistics around sales?
Yeah, so I'm constantly looking for new sources of information because what I try to do is I try to look at the market from as many angles as possible. Now, typically with macroeconomic events, you look at the vast majority of angles and the statistics line up. And if they don't line up, one has to think, what's going on here?
Right.
And anytime I have an idea of, oh, that would be an interesting idea, I actually look for a source of good data, which can be quite challenging. The information on insurance is challenging. It's not I can't drill down as much as I would like. And of course, the situation is in immense flux, not only in California, but across the nation. Many states are facing these mind-boggling issues that didn't even exist a few years ago as far as insurance. The only thing I have been able to find about local areas is the California Insurance Commissioner has a website. A lot of the data is often several years out of date.
Yeah.
Almost as if they don't even want to talk about it, unfortunately.
Or maybe they've all been fired, so they can't collect the data.
Yeah, it could be. I was able to find data that I think it looked at county, I believe it was on a county level. And what it looked at is the percentage of insurance policies in the previous period that had gone to California Fair Plan.
Okay.
So the California Fair Plan is one of those clearly canaries in the coal mine.
Right.
The reason why people shift to the Fair Plan to begin with is because they can't find an affordable policy,
Or
a
they're
relatively comprehensive policy, and so they're looking for something.
right. Yeah. And I had been a person who had farmers insurance since 2003. And I got a letter in the mail saying, we won't renew you.
Yeah.
Because my house is in an area that's ranked a 9 on a 10 fire scale, I hate to say. So I had to get California Fair Plan. And I noticed that it's almost out of money because of all of the things that have occurred. So
Yeah.
it will eventually just be a tool that people can use to get a mortgage as opposed to actually doing anything for anybody.
It's hard to understate the crisis, and unfortunately, though, as bad as it's become, one of the charts I do, and I got this information from the National Office of, I don't know, Weather or something, NOAA. Of course, probably all that data is in the verge of disappearing now. But they publish a map on billion-dollar weather events. And quite honestly, that's only kind of a snapshot, because now, of course, we're having these events that are $20 billion weather events. But I've looked at it over time. And of course, what we're seeing is an enormous increase in these events. And we in California, we think in terms of fire, but actually nationally, it's extreme weather.
Hurricanes,
yeah, strong winds,
flooding,
hail. Of course, flooding is always an issue, but for like places like we think of our fire, but and of course, Florida has been hammered by, of course, those, and the Southeast, the terrible hurricanes. But
you probably know what I think about that.
But actually, the part of the country that is most affected by extreme weather events is right in the middle. Going up from Texas up through the middle of the country. And the majority of these billion-dollar weather damage events actually occur there. And they almost all tie in with extreme winds and hail, things like that. So anyway, you can wander off. Obviously, some solutions. I'm glad I'm not a politician having to make these extremely difficult decisions when one is has to be reelected every 2 to 4 years. But the fact of the matter is, what this country requires, both on a local, state, and national level, is going back to fiduciary duty. We need office holders who believe in fiduciary duty, as in what is in the best interest of our clients or our residents,
right,
whether they want to hear it or not. And that goes back to the situation that you were in with your listing appointment. Fiduciary duty sometimes means telling people things that they don't really want to hear. But a good agent knows that they have no other choice. You may tell them what they don't want to hear, and they may decide to make another decision. And that, of course, is perfectly fine. The agent has fulfilled their obligation to tell the truth and try to do their best, but put it in the client's hands to make the decision, because again, the client is the only decision maker. It is their money at stake. It is their home at stake. It is all the issues that are wrapped up. It's all at stake for them.
right.
And so ultimately, they may well decide, okay, you have told me what you thought. I believe you're telling me the honest truth. Thank you. Now I'm going to make a decision that's counter to that because of other factors in my
Read.
life. Yeah.
Anyway, Patrick, how did you end up becoming a statistician? Is that what you call yourself? Is that your title?
And I call myself an analyst. So I started real estate in 1989, and I was an agent in the Bay Area for about 12 years. Then I moved into managing actually very large real estate offices,
Where?
ultimately in San Francisco.
Which company, out of curiosity?
I was originally with Pacific Union,
Okay.
and then I went with another startup named Paragon. You know,
You must know Wendy Storch very well, I'm going to guess.
I know Wendy very well, and
We
I
went,
still,
we
when
went to college together, and I love her. We love each other.
and as a sales manager, I would often take the agents who I thought had the smartest ideas and had the greatest commitment of fiduciary duty, and I have them come up once a year and say, what are the 10 best ideas that you had? And Wendy was indeed in many of those panels, a very smart agent.
Yeah, she's amazing.
Anyway, I was at Paragon and I was made a principal of Paragon. And I wore a lot of hats. I did a lot of operational stuff. I did coaching. I ran sales meetings. Like I said, I handled all the risk management training. But anyway, I was there when the 2008 crash occurred. And looking at the market I'm always surprised at how bad the quality of reportage on real estate is, even in the biggest newspapers. I read their articles and wow, you really don't know how this works. You have no idea of how seasonality works. You don't know what median sales price works. You're just grabbing a quote from someplace and turning it into an article. So obviously, during this huge financial crisis, it seemed to me there was even more need for some sort of straightforward information as to what was actually going on in the market. So I dipped my toe into the market and I started to create these reports, which looked horrible. My charts were just the cheesiest things you ever saw.
Now they're gorgeous, by the way. Absolutely stunning and beautiful, and I provide them to my clients all the time.
Oh, well, thank you. I think I have gotten better over time, but they were literally the only thing really out there. And the response from Paragon's clients, and the response from the media as well, was beyond all expectations. There was one month where my reports or I were quoted 40 times, 1 month. And of course, San Francisco at that time, and for quite a while since then, in the Bay Area, has a real locus of attention for the world. It's one of the great metro areas. And of course, then we went into high-tech booms and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, it clearly was filling a need. And it was clear to me that this is what really great agents like yourself get, is that the clients know when smoke is being blown in their face, generally speaking.
Or other areas too.
Yeah, and especially in an area like the Bay Area where so many of our clients are smart, well-educated, financially sophisticated. They know when somebody's just trying to get them to do something so they can make a commission and go on, and another agent who's just trying to provide them with data. So that's how I got started. And I continued to do that at Paragon, along with all my other responsibilities, up until 2018. And at that time, and I did it for just a couple Bay Area markets, because that's all Paragon focused on.
Right.
Then Paragon and Pacific Union were both bought by Compass. And the CEO, Robert Refkin, asked me if I would basically do market analytics for this. So before I know it, I was going from 3 markets to 6 markets to 8 markets. And ultimately I got to 16 markets. And that's where I said, nope, I can't do anymore. I can't do Lake Tahoe. I can't do Sacramento and that sort of thing. And that, of course, taking on all those other markets for what is initially, I guess we have about 8,000 agents. And then ultimately I was asked to do a national report for 25, 30,000 agents. So that ended up taking up every single moment of my time. And Compass has many very qualified people to take on the responsibilities that I used to do at Paragon, which was a relatively small local company. I moved away from all those other responsibilities and put on this single hat of market analyst.
It's
And
brilliant. It's wonderful. Yeah. So you and I came to Compass at about the same time then, 2018.
yeah, exactly the same time.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
And over that time, I've tried to, as working with the biggest real estate brokerage in the country, I try to up my game. And besides what's going on in local markets, I've also put my toe in the water of trying to provide macroeconomic context as to because of course, macroeconomic context is one of the foundational elements of real estate.
So I have one question for you. We're at the end of our time really, but you have been a magnificent guest. If you had to, and probably people are asking you this all the time, and you probably are demurring and saying nothing, predict the ramification of the tariffs on what it is we are doing. Could you give us a basic idea of what the ultimate effect of this is going to be?
Obviously, this is the big topic of the day, and it's something that I have thought about a lot. What I focus on is less the tariffs, because quite honestly, we have no idea what's going to happen with the tariffs because they're changing, they can change by the hour.
And he could just snap his fingers and decide not to do it.
No, literally,
Yeah.
a humongous policy can be reversed the following morning. So as far as the tariffs themselves are concerned, higher costs for building materials
Right.
is pretty much a given. So that's not particularly good for home building. And the fact of the matter is a huge amount of our construction is actually performed by immigrants. If they're being deported or afraid to leave their houses, that's going to raise the cost because a shortage of labor drives up costs. And then, of course, if nobody wants to move to the United States anymore because they feel that they're being demonized, foreign immigration is a huge issue, not only in the country, but very much in the Bay Area. Most of our counties have from 35 to 45% population of foreign-born residents. And these people have ejected enormous energy and affluence and innovation and dynamism into our market. So if those people no longer are coming in, one, it's a big change in population dynamics, but two, it's just a big change in the dynamism of our country and our Bay Area. So anyway, that's the kind of tariffs thing.
Yeah.
Beyond that, I think that the two big macroeconomic issues are uncertainty, volatility, I could say three. And of course, we're seeing a huge plunge in consumer confidence because people typically don't like uncertainty. When people are deeply uncertain about the future, they have a tendency to pull back.
Absolutely. During the election, the uncertainty there affected things tremendously. And even though where I live, I'm in Berkeley, California, pretty much everybody I know here is a left-leaning liberal Democrat, obviously. People were not happy about Trump being elected, but the fact that he was elected and that was over, and we had no idea what it was going to be like, I think people thought it would be not normal, but relatively normal. And so you saw people coming back into the marketplace. And as things have gotten weirder and weirder and weirder, I'm seeing buyers pull back massively.
Yeah. When people are deeply uncertain about what the future holds, both on a macroeconomic basis and their personal. Will they have a job next month? They work for the university, they work for the government. What's going to happen with the stock market, which is a huge portion of household wealth in this country? Is inflation going to come back? And consumer confidence expectations are that it is. I don't know what exactly has happened. I actually am not very good at predicting the future, which I'm an oddball in analysts like that because analysts love to predict the future. I wish I could predict the future, but especially in an era now where so much is uncertain, it's like we're looking at a sea of spinning plates that are half of which are wobbling, and I don't know what's going to happen. People are very reluctant to make, again, what is often the biggest financial decision of their lives, certainly one of the biggest ones, except
Right.
for billionaires. They have a tendency to sit back and go, I'm going to wait to see how this shakes out
Sure.
before make these big moves. Now, we have seen that over the long term, typically real estate has indeed been a great investment. Even people who bought at the peak of the market in 2008 in the Bay Area and went through the Great Recession, well, by 2014, 2015, we're seeing their
Increases in value.
yeah, and of course, ultimately spectacular. And again, many people plan to live in their homes for, I think actually most people plan when they buy a home to live in 10 or 15 years. And of course, a lot of people think I'm going to live here for the rest of my life. But still, the uncertainty creates great unease regarding so many economic and personal issues,
so many
levels.
Yeah, I actually, when I'm not being a realtor, which is, as you know, 99% of the time, I actually work at a theater called the Magic Theater in San Francisco.
Oh, I know the Magic Theater, sure.
Yeah, I'm the director of new play development for them, and I do their reading series for them. And they have already ascertained that they're going to lose about half their funding. And that's going to happen all over the Bay Area. So you're not just losing scientists and people that are researching important things like cancer, that other things aren't important, but you're not only losing all those people, you're also going to be losing the artists.
Absolutely.
They won't be able to afford to live here anymore. So
yeah, the economic effects are so far, and again, I don't know how it's going to shake out or where it's going. I don't think anybody does, though some of course do. But it's like a flood. The water goes everywhere.
Yeah.
And that sort of damage is just right now is just continuing to flow into people's lives, often in terrible ways.
Yeah, like the person who just discovered this incredible cure, essentially, for multiple sclerosis, they lost their job.
Yeah.
As they revealed the result of their incredible research.
My wife is in medical research, and in fact, she's an analyst that makes me look like I'm a baby in a playpen, quite honestly. But you can imagine what's going on throughout the research and university and this huge ecosystem of medical research and development. And so many of these arenas are right now, they're just stalked by fear.
Oh, absolutely. And there's a butterfly effect. It's not just going to affect us here. It's going to affect everybody in the entire world. That little girl that just got sent, quote unquote, back to wherever it was she was coming from, I can't remember, who had cancer. How can you pry a child away from cancer treatment? It's insane. This is insanity. But
I read 6 newspapers a day, but there's a lot of headlines. I look at the headline and go, I don't want to read about that. It's good to know about the general sense of what's going on, but reading the news has become a very difficult emotional process for many of us.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I thank you, by the way, thank you for coming on my show.
Again, thank you.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of the Realizations Podcast. I hope our conversation has shed light on the true essence of real estate and the people behind it. As we wrap up, I want to extend my gratitude to our listeners for their support and engagement. Your feedback drives the heart of this podcast, and I look forward to continuing this journey with you. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider subscribing to the Realizations Podcast and leaving a review. Your support helps us reach more listeners and spread our message of positivity in the real estate industry. Until next time, remember to keep an open mind, embrace empathy, and always seek the good in every situation. I'm Andrea Gordon, signing off from Realizations. See you next time.